The crystalline fleet appeared without warning, their massive ships tearing holes in the fabric of space as they emerge. Like shards of diamond catching starlight, the Kraxthar vessels positioned themselves in perfect geometric patterns at the edge of human space. Each ship dwarfed humanity's largest carriers, their angular forms defying conventional engineering principles. Admiral Kate Morrison stood on the bridge of the U.S. Defiant, her weathered hands clasped behind her back as she studied the tactical display. 20 years of military service had taught her to expect the unexpected. But this was something else entirely. The alien fleet's formation resembled a massive crystalline snowflake, beautiful and lethal in its precision. "Ma'am," Lieutenant Rodriguez called from his communication station. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies. The signal is being translated in real time." Morrison nodded, her steel-gray eyes never leaving the display. "Let's hear what our unexpected guests have to say." The voice that filled the bridge seemed to vibrate at an almost subsonic level, as if the very atoms of the air were being compelled to carry its message. "Species designate, human. We are the Kraxthar Federation. Your existence has drawn our attention. Your recent advances into faster-than-light travel have qualified you for evaluation." Morrison raised an eyebrow. "Evaluation? That's a new one. Open a channel." Before she could speak, the alien voice continued. "Our protocols are absolute. All emergent spacefaring races must prove their worth through combat or accept their place under Kraxthar guidance. You have 6 Earth hours to prepare your response. Choose wisely." The bridge crew exchanged glances. Some showed fear, others confusion. But Morrison noticed something else in their eyes, something that made her smile. Excitement. "Get me fleet command," she ordered, straightening her uniform, "and patch me through to every human settlement and ship in range. They'll want to hear this." Within minutes, the collected leadership of Earth's military forces appeared on her screen. The faces of admirals, generals, and commanders filled the display, their expressions grim but determined. "Ladies and gentlemen," Morrison began, "I assume you've all received our visitor's message. They want to fight. I say we give them one they'll never forget." Admiral Chen from the Asian Alliance leaned forward. "The Kraxthar fleet outmasses our combined forces by at least 3-1. Their technology appears to be centuries ahead of ours." "True," Morrison replied, a predatory grin spreading across her face. "But they don't know us. They don't know what happened during the Mars Rebellion, or how we turned a mining fleet into a guerrilla navy. They haven't seen what humans can do when backed into a corner." General Santos of the South American Federation chuckled. "They think they're testing us. Perhaps we should show them what real combat looks like." The next 4 hours passed in a blur of activity. Every military vessel within range began moving into position. Civilian ships volunteered for support roles, their crews eager to play their part. Social media exploded with memes about punching aliens in their crystalline faces, while hastily designed human victory merchandise began flooding the markets. As the deadline approached, Morrison stood once more before the tactical display. The Kraxthar fleet hadn't moved, their formation maintaining that same perfect geometric pattern. They'd probably thought it was intimidating. To her, it just looked rigid, predictable. "Channel open, Admiral," Rodriguez announced. "You're broadcasting to both our forces and the Kraxthar fleet." Morrison smiled, remembering all the battles that had led to this moment. The frozen wastes of Mars, the skirmishes in the asteroid belt, the countless simulations and war games. Humanity had been preparing for this moment without even knowing it. "This is Admiral Kate Morrison of the United Earth Fleet," she announced, her voice carrying across the vast distance of space. "To the Kraxthar Federation, we accept your challenge. In fact, we welcome it. You want to test our worth through combat? Fine by us. Name the time and place. We'll be there." She paused, then added with a smirk, "And bring your A-game, because we sure as hell will be bringing ours." The response was immediate. Cheers erupted across human frequencies. On social media, Her words were already being remixed into motivation videos and battle cries. The Kraxthar, however, remained silent for several long moments. When they finally responded, their subsonic voice carried an unmistakable note of surprise. "You accept, without negotiation, without protest." "Dan right we do," Morrison replied. "Now shall we discuss the rules of engagement, or do you need more time to process the fact that we're actually looking forward to this?" The Kuiper Belt, Admiral Morrison announced to the assembled War Council, her hologram floating above command tables across Earth's military installations. "That's where they want to throw down. 3 days from now." The response was not what the Kraxthar observers expected. Instead of dread, the human military leaders leaned forward with interest, like chess players presented with an intriguing gambit. "The Kuiper Belt," General Santos repeated, stroking his chin. "Lots of cover, plenty of dark spots for ambush positions. They're probably counting on the debris field to slow our larger ships." "Which means they don't know about the garbage dogs," Colonel Sarah Mitchell chimed in, referring to the elite pilots who'd made their names flying through asteroid fields during the Mars Rebellion. Already, her fingers danced across her tablet, sending out priority recalls to retired veterans. Within hours, humanity's response to imminent interstellar war took shape, and it looked suspiciously like a sporting event. The massive holographic displays in Times Square, usually reserved for advertisements and news, now showed tactical breakdowns of Kraxthar ship movements. Sports commentators, hastily brushing up on military jargon, analyzed the alien fleet's formations with the same enthusiasm they normally reserve for playoff games. "Look at that crystalline structure," Dr. James Chen pointed out on a viral livestream, using a laser pointer on frozen footage of the alien ships. "Classic geometric perfection. Beautiful engineering, but you know what that means." He grinned at the camera. "Predictable stress points." In orbital shipyards, engineers worked with fevered excitement. Mining lasers were retrofitted into weapons, their frequencies adjusted based on spectrographic analysis of the Kraxthar hulls. Civilian vessels volunteered for modifications, their crews practically bouncing with anticipation as military-grade shields were installed. The Kraxthar observers watched in growing confusion as betting pools sprung up across human space. Odds were calculated not just on victory or defeat, but on specific battle scenarios. First ship to score a kill became a popular category, with the U.S. Defiant as the clear favorite. "They're treating this like entertainment," one Kraxthar analyst reported back to their command. "Our psychological model suggested they would spend this time in prayer or fear. Instead, humanity spent it preparing in their own unique way." Veteran pilots from the Mars Rebellion held impromptu masterclasses, teaching young hotshots the finer points of zero combat maneuvers. Their war stories, once told in quiet bars, now broadcast across social media with hashtags like #CracksThis and #CrystalCrushers. In her private quarters aboard the Defiant, Morrison reviewed the latest tactical updates. Her screen showed hundreds of civilian ships being outfitted for combat support roles, their crews training with a determination that brought a smile to her face. The Kraxthar had unknowingly awakened something unique in human nature, the joy of facing a worthy challenge. "Admiral," her eye assistant announced, "you might want to see this." A new window opened, showing a live stream from Houston. A group of engineering students had reconstructed a miniature Kraxthar ship in their lab and were systematically testing different methods of shattering it. Their excitement at each successful destruction test was palpable. "Send this to Tactical," Morrison ordered. Some of those approaches might actually work. As the deadline approached, humanity's preparation took on an almost festive air. Merchandise featuring crossed human and Kraxthar ships sold out instantly. Memes about the upcoming battle flooded the networks. Someone even composed a battle symphony, mixing the subsonic frequencies of Kraxthar communications with heavy metal. The Kraxthar observers, monitoring all of this, sent increasingly confused reports back to their fleet. "They're not just accepting battle," one report stated. "They're embracing it. Their military trains while their civilians celebrate. They analyze our strengths not with fear, but with professional interest. When they identify our advantages, they respond not with despair, but with innovation. We intended this as a test of their worth. They're treating it like a long-awaited game day. The report concluded with a note of uncertainty. Perhaps in our evaluation of humanity, we have overlooked something fundamental about their nature. They don't fear the challenge we present. They welcome it. And that, more than any weapon they possess, should concern us. Morrison, reading intercepted translations of these reports, couldn't help but laugh. "Oh, you crystal cowboys," she muttered. "You have no idea what you've gotten yourselves into." The Kuiper Belt stretched before them like a cosmic obstacle course, its countless asteroids and ice chunks creating a three-dimensional maze of natural cover. In perfect formation, the Krakthar fleet assembled their battle line, a crystalline phalanx that had shattered hundreds of alien civilizations. They waited in silence for humanity's arrival. They got AC/DC instead. Thunderstruck, blasted across all frequencies as the first human ships burst from hyperspace, their arrival perfectly timed to the opening riffs. The U.S. Defiant led the charge, its hull adorned with fresh war paint, depicting a grinning shark. "Ladies and gentlemen," Admiral Morrison's voice cut through the music, "let's show them how humans dance." The Krakthar battle computers, programmed with millennia of combat data, attempted to predict human attack patterns. They failed spectacularly. Instead of forming opposing battle lines, the human fleet shattered into dozens of smaller groups, each moving with seemingly chaotic purpose. "Battle Group Echo, you've got those asteroids mapped," Morrison called out. "You bet your stars, Admiral," came the response from Captain Rodriguez, now commanding his own squadron. "My boys spent 3 hours last night playing Thread the Needle in simulation. We're ready to make it real." The Krakthar watched in growing confusion as human ships began performing maneuvers that defied conventional military doctrine. Fighters spun through impossibly tight turns, using the asteroid's gravity to slingshot themselves into attack positions. Converted mining vessels, their hulls reinforced with makeshift armor, charged straight at the crystalline fleet's flanks. "This is Battle Group Sierra," a gleeful voice announced. "Watch this trick we learned from skateboarding vids." A squadron of light cruisers skimmed along an asteroid's surface, using its rotation to build momentum before launching themselves like missiles toward the enemy's formation. The Krakthar shifted to intercept, only to discover the cruisers were a diversion. From within hollowed-out asteroids, humanity's secret weapons emerged. Civilian mining ships, converted into carriers, disgorged swarms of fighters. Each small craft bore personalized art, everything from tiger sharks to pin-up models to cartoon characters giving rude gestures. "Garbage dogs, you're up," Morrison commanded. "Show them why they should fear Earth's crazy cousins from Mars." The veteran pilots from the Mars Rebellion needed no second invitation. They dove into the thickest parts of the asteroid field, their small ships moving with impossible precision. The Krakthar targeted them, only to watch their shots destroy empty space as the humans used to brace for cover. "Their formation's too rigid," called out Lieutenant Sarah Chen from Tactical. "Look at those geometrically perfect angles. They're practically begging us to find the weak spots." Morrison grinned as she watched the Kraksthar's perfect phalanx trying to adapt to human unpredictability. Their ships moved like a crystalline ballet, beautiful and precise, and utterly unable to handle the organized chaos humanity had unleashed. "This is mining vessel Thunderchild," a new voice crackled over the comms. "We've got their shield frequency mapped. These fancy rocks aren't so tough once you find the right resonance." A modified mining laser struck one of the smaller Krakthar ships. Instead of dissipating against its shields, the beam created a web of cracks across its crystalline surface. The alien vessel shuddered, its perfect geometry compromised. "All units," Morrison broadcasted, "Thunderchild's got the right idea. Target these frequencies. Let's give them a proper Earth welcome." Across the battlefield, Human ships began adapting their weapons on the fly. The Kraxthar's tactical AI crashed trying to process the constant changes in attack patterns. Their rigid formation, designed to counter conventional military strategies, found itself picked apart by humans treating space combat like a combination of guerrilla warfare and extreme sports. Admiral Rodriguez reported, barely containing his laughter, "You've got to hear this. We're picking up their internal communications. They're trying to figure out why we keep doing barrel rolls." "Tell them it's because barrel rolls are cool," Morrison replied, watching as another Kraxthar ship's perfect surface began to splinter under concentrated fire. "And someone bump up the music. If we're going to crack these crystal castles, we might as well have a proper soundtrack." As Back in Black replaced Thunderstruck, the battle entered its second phase. The Kraxthar, for the first time in their long history, found themselves facing an enemy that didn't just fight. They celebrated the fight itself. "Shields are still holding at 80%. Lieutenant Chen called out from her tactical station. The U.S. Defiant shuddered as another crystalline beam splashed across its defensive screens. "But we're barely scratching theirs." Admiral Morrison watched the tactical display, her eyes narrowing as the Kraxthar ships reformed their geometric patterns. Thunderchild's initial success with the resonance frequencies had prompted the aliens to adapt, their shields shifting to compensate. "Ma'am," Rodriguez interrupted, "you're going to want to see this." Patching through a transmission from MIT, the holographic display flickered, revealing the disheveled teenager surrounded by empty energy drink cans and half-eaten pizza. "Admiral, we cracked it." She held up what looked like a modified gaming console. "Their shield frequency. It's not random. It's following a pattern based on crystal harmonics." Morrison leaned forward. "Explain." "Their ships are basically giant space crystals, right? Well, we took that literally. Been running simulations on my PlayStation 7, treating their shields like a massive crystalline structure. The frequency patterns match up with basic crystal resonance theories. They're not just using shields, they're extending their crystalline nature into their defensive systems." Before Morrison could respond, another voice cut in. "Houston Control here, confirming MIT's findings. We've been smashing miniature crystal models for the past hour. The breakthrough frequency isn't what hits the shields, it's what happens after the initial impact." Morrison's tactical mind raced with the implications, like hitting a wine glass with the right sound. "Exactly." The MIT student nearly bounced out of her chair, but better. "Every time they adapt their shields, they have to follow specific crystalline patterns. We can predict them." Morrison slammed her fist into her palm. "Rodriguez, broadcast these findings to all ships. Engineering, I want our weapons recalibrated based on this data." Across the battlefield, humanity's forces began to adapt. Mining lasers were retuned, rail guns adjusted their impact frequencies, and even the smallest fighters modified their attack patterns to exploit this newfound weakness. "This is the Thunderchild again." The mining vessel's captain sounded positively giddy, confirming the new frequencies. "Watch this." A modified mining beam struck a Kraxthar cruiser. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then, like cracks spreading across ice, lines of energy began to spider web across the alien vessel's shields. The crystalline surface beneath began to resonate, humming at a frequency the human instruments could barely detect. "All ships," Morrison ordered, "coordinate your strikes. Time them to match the resonance patterns. Let's show them what happens when you bring crystal to a rock concert." Human vessels began attacking in waves, their weapons' fire synchronized like notes in a symphony of destruction. The Kraxthar shields, designed to be impenetrable, found themselves subjected to the laws of their own crystalline nature. "They're adapting again," Chen reported, watching the tactical display. "Shifting shield frequencies. Wait, something's wrong with their pattern." Morrison grinned. "They can't adapt freely. They have to follow their crystal structure's natural harmonics. They're trapped by their own perfect engineering." A Crackstar battleship, its shields compromised by the coordinated assault, began to crack along its crystalline seams. The sight inspired a new wave of human innovation. Check this out, called a fighter pilot. If you hit them here, here, and here, 3 rapid strikes demonstrated his point. The resonance patterns interfere with each other. It's like playing 3 different notes to shatter a glass. The battle space transformed into a testing ground as human ships experimented with different attack patterns. Some crews started naming their successful combinations, leading to calls of "try the Princeton punch" or "hit 'em with the Tokyo tremor." The Crackstar, confronted with humanity's rapid adaptation, attempted to withdraw and regroup. Their perfectly orchestrated retreat was met with a barrage of newly modified weapons, each shot carefully timed to exploit their crystalline weaknesses. "Admiral," Rodriguez reported, "we're intercepting their communications again. They're trying to understand why we're treating their shield frequencies like musical notes." Morrison laughed. "Tell them it's because humans have always believed that everything in the universe dances to its own tune. We just had to find theirs." She turned to her tactical display. "Now let's show them our grand final. All ships, prepare for Operation Glass Symphony." The Crackstar were about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their numbers. It was their ability to turn any challenge into an opportunity for innovation. The tactical display aboard the U.S. Defiant suddenly blazed with warning lights as new signatures emerged from hyperspace. The Crackstar reinforcements had arrived, but these were unlike anything humanity had faced before. Massive crystalline structures, each the size of a small moon, materialized at the edge of the battlefield. "World breakers," Lieutenant Chen whispered, her face pale as sensor data scrolled across her screen. "Each one has enough firepower to crack a planet's crust." Admiral Morrison studied the new arrivals, her expression hardening. The massive vessels made the previous Crackstar ships look like toys in comparison. Their crystalline surfaces pulsed with internal energy, creating cascading patterns that resembled northern lights. "Status report," Morrison demanded, her voice steady despite the threat looming before them. 5 world breakers detected," Rodriguez responded. "Their energy readings are off the charts. Our new resonance frequencies. They're not even making a dent in their shield harmonics." The lead world breaker's message boomed across all frequencies. "Your resistance has been noted, humans. Your innovation is impressive, but futile. Surrender now, or watch your worlds burn." Morrison's response was to open a channel to all human ships. "Ladies and gentlemen, it seems our dance partners have brought out their heavy hitters. You know what that means. Time for Operation Beer Hold My." Captain Sarah Walker's voice crackled through the comms, excitement evident despite the static. "Execute." Across the battlefield, civilian ships that had been hanging back suddenly surged forward. These weren't military vessels. They were commercial freighters, mining barges, and passenger liners. Each had been stripped down, reinforced, and packed with something special. "This is the Stellar Spirit," announced a freighter captain as his ship accelerated toward the nearest world breaker. Former luxury cruise liner, now carrying enough antimatter to light up a small sun, always wanted to go out with a bang. The Crackstar, detecting the antimatter signatures, began targeting the approaching vessels. Their crystal weapons lashed out, but the human ships weaved and dodged, using every trick learned from the previous engagement. "Receiving transmission from Shanghai Control," Rodriguez reported. "They're calling it Operation Firefly down there. Betting pools are going crazy on which ship makes first contact." Morrison watched as the civilian vessels executed their suicide runs. The crews had all volunteered, many of them recording final messages that were already going viral across human space. They approached their task not with dread, but with an almost festive determination. "This is the Lucky Star," another captain broadcast. "Got my whole crew here. We've been running cargo through the asteroid belts for 20 years. Never thought we'd get to save humanity. How's that for a retirement plan?" The first World Breaker's defenses proved formidable, its crystalline surface sprouting geometric patterns of point defense weapons. But it couldn't target everything at once, not with regular military ships providing covering fire and the remaining civilian fleet approaching from multiple vectors. Impact in 3, 2, 1. The Lucky Star's transmission cut off as it slammed into the World Breaker's shields. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the antimatter containment field collapsed. The explosion was magnificent. The World Breaker's perfect crystalline structure, designed to channel and control enormous energies, became its own worst enemy. The antimatter reaction followed the geometric patterns of the ship's construction, turning its elegant design into a network of destruction. First blood to the Lucky Star, Morrison announced as the massive vessel began to break apart. Let's make it count, people. The remaining World Breakers adjusted their tactics, but they faced a uniquely human problem. How do you defend against an enemy willing to sacrifice everything for victory? More civilian ships pressed their attacks, their crews broadcasting everything from battle cries to favorite songs to drinking toasts. "This is the mining vessel Deep Rock," a gruff voice announced. "Been blasting asteroids for 30 years. Time to blast something bigger. For Earth." The Crackstar commanders watched in growing horror as their ultimate weapons, vessels that had destroyed entire civilizations, found themselves swarmed by humans treating tactical suicide as an extreme sport. Their rigid battle doctrine had no counter for an enemy that celebrated its own sacrifice. "Status update," Chen called out. 3 World Breakers showing critical damage. The civilian fleet, 80% casualties, but they're still coming. The remaining crews are arguing over who gets to hit the last targets. Morrison nodded, a fierce pride burning in her chest. "Send word to all ships. Remember the Lucky Star. Remember them all. Now let's finish what they started." The second day of battle dawned, if dawn could exist in the perpetual twilight of the Kuiper Belt. Aboard the flagship of the Crackstar fleet, High Commander Zex Toll reviewed the battle footage with mounting bewilderment. His crystalline form shimmered with confusion as he watched humans name their combat maneuvers after ancient warriors and fictional characters. Executing the Leonidas Gambit, one human squadron announced, before diving straight through a gap in Crackstar formations. "This is Sparta," they shouted, moments before destroying 2 crystal frigates. "Their behavior defies all combat logic," Zex Toll transmitted to his tactical advisors. "They're treating this extinction-level event like some form of entertainment." On the U.S. Defiant, Admiral Morrison received the intercepted communications with a grin. "They still don't get it, do they?" she mused, watching as a group of fighters performed a perfect synchronized strike they'd dubbed the Flying V after some ancient sports formation. "Admiral," Rodriguez called out, "you need to see this. The Crackstar are broadcasting their tactical analysis of our battle patterns." The alien assessment appeared on her screen. Human combat methodology appears to be based on random chance and emotional impulse. Their ships perform unnecessary maneuvers for no tactical advantage. They celebrate destruction, even their own. Most concerning, they appear to be enjoying themselves. "Send them a response," Morrison ordered. "Tell them, if you think our moves are random, wait until you see what we've choreographed for the encore." Across the battlefield, humanity's forces had begun turning warfare into an art form. Fighter squadrons coordinated their attacks to match popular dance beats. Carrier groups named their formations after famous sports plays. Someone had even started a ranking system for most stylish kill of the day. "This is Battle Group Sierra," a transmission crackled through. "Watch this move we learned from watching old kung fu movies." The Crackstar tactical AI crashed for the 3rd time trying to predict attack patterns based on human popular culture references. Their rigid, geometric formations found themselves countered by maneuvers inspired by everything from basketball plays to ballet movements. "They're attempting to understand our battle psychology," Chen reported, monitoring enemy communications. Their analysts are trying to figure out why we keep shouting "Kobe" before making difficult shots. Morrison laughed. Let them try. How do you explain humanity to someone who's never seen a sports fan paint themselves in team colors? The Crackstar's confusion reached new heights when they intercepted transmissions from Earth. Instead of scenes of panic or preparation for defeat, they found humans hosting viewing parties. Combat footage was being analyzed like championship games, complete with instant replays and expert commentary. Here we see the Princeton Squadron executing a perfect split-six defense, a former fighter pilot explained on a popular stream. Note the use of debris for cover, classic Mars Rebellion tactics, but with a modern twist. Solid 9/10 for execution. Even more baffling to the crystalline aliens were the betting pools. Humans weren't wagering on survival. They were betting on which squadron would score the next kill, which ship would come up with the most creative attack name, and whether Admiral Morrison would make another movie reference in her next battlefield declaration. High Commander, a Crackstar analyst reported, their neural patterns during combat. They're identical to what we've observed in their recreational activities. They're not just fighting. They're playing. Zextal's crystalline form pulsed with frustration. Impossible. No species can derive enjoyment from existential combat. The humans proved him wrong again when Battle Group Echo turned their formation into a giant smiley face moments before launching a devastating attack on the Crackstar's left flank. This is Captain Rodriguez. The transmission went out on all frequencies. We call this one the happy surprise. Smile for the camera. Morrison watched as her forces continued to transform the battlefield into their own personal stage. The Crackstar had expected to face a species fighting for survival. Instead, they found humans who approached combat like a performance art, complete with soundtrack and choreography. Send word to all ships, she ordered. Tell them to prepare for Operation Jazz Hands. Let's show these crystal cowboys what happens when humans really decide to put on a show. The Crackstar were about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their tactics. It was their ability to find joy in the heart of chaos. High Commander Zextal's crystalline form pulsed with determination as he activated the Crackstar's ultimate weapon. Initialize psychic warfare protocols, he ordered, his voice resonating through the crystalline chambers. Show these humans true power. Aboard the U.S. Defiant, Admiral Morrison felt it first, a subtle pressure at the edges of her consciousness, like the moment before a thunderstorm breaks. Report, she commanded, noting the sudden silence on the bridge. Energy readings off the scale. Lieutenant Chen managed through gritted teeth. They're broadcasting. Something. Targeting our minds directly. The Crackstar psychic assault rolled across the battlefield like a tsunami of pure despair. It was their most refined weapon, tested across 1,000 worlds. The crystalline ships amplified the attack, their geometric patterns focusing the psychic energy into an overwhelming force of hopelessness and fear. But humanity didn't break. Instead, the Crackstar psychic network encountered something unprecedented. Diversity. What is this? The Crackstar psychic commander reeled as human minds responded in countless different ways. Where they expected uniform terror, they found a kaleidoscope of emotional responses. From the fighter squadrons came hot-blooded determination, their pilots' minds burning with competitive spirit. Nice try with the mind games, one pilot broadcast, his laughter cutting through the psychic pressure. I've had worse anxiety before high school dates. The veteran crews from the Mars Rebellion responded with cold, calculated fury, their minds hardened by years of combat. Their thoughts were like ice, crystalline in their own way, but forged by experience rather than nature. This is Battle Group Sierra. Their commander transmitted through the mental storm. Been through worse in the mines of Mars. At least this light shows pretty. The civilian support ships contributed their own unique mental flavor, a mix of professional focus and excited amateur enthusiasm. Their crews' minds buzzed with the thrill of participating in humanity's greatest adventure. Fear transformed into exhilaration. Engineering teams, report, Morrison called out. fighting through the psychic static. The responses came back in a cascade of human resilience. "I'm too busy calculating resonance frequencies to be afraid. These calculations won't solve themselves, mind control or not. Someone tell the aliens to keep it down. We're trying to work here." The Crackstar psychic network, designed to impose uniform despair, found itself overwhelmed by the sheer variety of human mental responses. Some crews met the attack with meditation learned from ancient Earth traditions. Others responded with music, their minds filled with everything from classical symphonies to heavy metal. High Commander, the Psychic Warfare Division reported, their crystalline forms flickering with distress. "We're experiencing feedback." Their minds, they're not just resisting. They're pushing back with what? Zextol demanded. Everything. Some are doing mathematical calculations. Others are reciting poetry. One group is mentally singing something called Sweet Caroline, and by the crystal core, the rest of their fleet is joining in. Morrison felt the shift in the psychic battlefield as humanity's collective consciousness responded in its own unique way. The Crackstar attempt to impose order on human minds met the same fate as their attempts to impose order on human tactics, creative chaos. "Send word to all ships," she ordered, her voice strong despite the continuing psychic assault. "Show them what humanity's got in our heads. Every song, every story, every dream and nightmare. Let it all out." The Crackstar psychic network, faced with the full spectrum of human consciousness, began to overload. Their crystalline ships, designed to channel and amplify psychic energy, found themselves conducting the symphony of human thought they couldn't control. "This is impossible." Zextol watched as his psychic warriors withdrew, their crystalline forms cracking under the mental strain. No species can maintain such mental diversity under pressure. There should be uniformity in fear. "That's humanity's secret," Morrison transmitted back, allowing herself a smile as the psychic pressure began to fade. "We're at our most diverse when under pressure. You wanted to see inside human minds. Well, now you've got front row seats to the greatest show in the galaxy." The Crackstar's ultimate weapon had failed, overwhelmed not by superior force, but by humanity's refusal to think, feel, or fight in just one way. The third day never came. Instead, the Crackstar fleet's perfect geometric formation shifted, crystalline ships realigning themselves into what could only be described as a gesture of reverence. High Commander Zextol's transmission cut through the aftermath of battle, his subsonic voice carrying an emotion humans had never heard from the crystalline beings before. "Respect. Admiral Morrison of Earth," he announced, "we surrender." From her position on the Defiance Bridge, Morrison raised an eyebrow. Just like that. No final battle. No last stand speech about crystal supremacy. "No," Zextol replied, his crystalline form pulsing with colors humans would later learn indicated amusement. "We surrender not because we must, but because we finally understand. And understanding, in this case, is far more valuable than victory." The bridge crew exchanged glances as Morrison leaned forward. "Understand what exactly?" "That we have been teaching the wrong lesson for millennia." The High Commander's ship moved closer, its damaged crystalline surface catching starlight in new patterns. "We are not conquerors, Admiral. We are teachers tasked with preparing younger races for what lies ahead." Lieutenant Chen's console lit up with new readings. "Admiral, they're transmitting data. Star charts, tactical information, historical records. It's, my God." On screens across the human fleet, images appeared of something vast and dark moving between galaxies, something that devoured light itself, that consumed civilizations whole, something that had been traveling toward the Milky Way for longer than Earth had harbored life. "The Great Dark," Zextol explained. "It comes, as it has come before, as it will come again. For 10,000 years, we have tested emerging species, seeking those with the strength to stand against it. Those who could join our alliance of survival." Morrison studied the data scrolling across her screen. And this battle was our test. Yes, but you did not merely pass it. You rendered it obsolete. The crystalline commander's form shimmered with what might have been embarrassment. We designed our trials to find species who could adapt to perfect order, who could learn to fight with precision and unity. Instead, we found you. Finding chaos in our order, Morrison quoted back his earlier assessment. Exactly. The Great Dark cannot be defeated by precision alone. We know. We tried. We fought it with perfect formations, with calculated strikes, with unified purpose. We survived. But barely. And in our drive for perfection, we nearly missed what you showed us in mere days. Across the human fleet, crews listened as Zextol continued. You turned battle into art. You found joy in combat. Your minds hold 1,000 different ways of thinking, yet work in harmony. You do not simply adapt, you celebrate adaptation itself. You treat warfare like a dance, tactics like a game, and even in the face of extinction, you laugh. Morrison couldn't help but smile. So what happens now? Now we request your help. Not as subjects, but as teachers. Our crystalline technology combined with human creativity. Our strategic precision enhanced by your tactical chaos. Will you join us in preparing for the Great Dark? One condition. Morrison replied, her grin widening. We get to name the joint training exercises. The laughter that rippled across human communications was joined, for the first time, by the harmonic tones of crystalline amusement. Ships that had been trying to destroy each other hours before now moved in joint formation, human vessels weaving between their crystalline counterparts in an impromptu victory dance. This is why you will help us survive, Zextol observed, watching the display. In all our millennia of testing species, you are the first to make us laugh. As celebration erupted across human space, as footage of the battle became an instant cultural phenomenon, as memes about crystal ships and human chaos flooded the networks, Morrison stood on her bridge and watched the beginning of something new. Humanity had not just survived its first interstellar war, it had turned it into the galaxy's greatest show. Send word to Earth, she ordered, watching human and Crackstar ships beginning joint maneuvers. Tell them to prepare for Operation First Contact. Phase 2. Cultural exchange. And somebody get these crystal cowboys some decent music. If they're going to be our allies against the Great Dark, they need to learn how to really dance. The battle was over, but humanity's greatest performance was just beginning.